so we're going to talk about our ACT scores since COVID. So overall, how our main score. So like during COVID, 2020 and 2021, it dropped. And then since then we saw a big gain in 21, 22, and then we don't really know this year, but what are y'all's thoughts on how we can continue to improve our overall scores?
Well, I think for me personally, I'm the 11th grade English teacher. Just incorporating more practice. I think the more the kids are exposed to the kinds of questions, and especially in a timed atmosphere, the more comfortable they get. Because the biggest issue I see with the ACT isn't necessarily the kids not knowing the information or not knowing how to find the information. It's their test anxiety when it comes to the time test.
I have mostly sophomores and a few juniors and seniors in physics, but even the honors kids struggle with graphing and data tables and interpreting information. So we are in our labs, we're going to take our data and practice creating data tables, creating graphs, and they can create it and interpret their own data. They can take someone else's, hopefully, and be able to read a graph or interpret data from it.
Right. So what do we think may have led to the improvement in the scores from 2020, this academic year of 2020, 2021, and then 21, 22?
I think that just the intentional effort, like I said, exposing kids to the questions in a time setting. I know that there's the ACT prep classes offered here with Ms. Ray, and I think again, just having the kids exposed to ACT questions in a time setting intentionally and repeatedly throughout the year is one of the most powerful things you can do.
I also think the biggest jump, between those 2 years that you were asking was the difference between the kids actually being in the school setting. In the first year that you talked about, the 2020, 2021, students at that point had the opportunity to be virtual, and many of them took that opportunity. We as a whole world had no idea what we were dealing with, and so I couldn't blame parents for keeping their kids at home and trying to protect them. But I feel like now that we're kind of back, almost, not to say we're back to normal, but for the most part, this school year has been the first year since COVID that we haven't had to go virtual. And we've gotten most of our students back, and I think just face-to-face instruction has, obviously has helped our test scores improve.
Right. And I think if you look at, so science and English between those 2 years made the biggest jumps. Every math, science, English, and reading, they all improve, but science and English improved the most out of those, math being third and then reading being fourth. But 21, 22 is also the year where we have 4 teachers in every core subject level. Before that, the previous years, there were 3 in history and 3 in English. And so classes were bigger. You had people teaching out of content areas. And so, I think that could have contributed to that too. Now we also have, Miss Ray teaches science, so she's ACT certified, and you, Miss Odom, teach English, and you're ACT certified. So I think that really helps with those. It's interesting with the census testing, with every junior taking it, how much it dropped. The participation rate has dropped because now, a lot of colleges, universities are waiving the ACT for admissions. They still use it for scholarships and purposes like that. But do we think that we're going to continue to see a large number of students take it outside the state mandated test, or do we think it's still just going to be for those that are trying to get scholarships and extra money since schools are still waiting?
I would personally hope that we as a school would push taking the ACT even in earlier grades. As an 11th grade English teacher, when the kids come in August, I only have a handful of kids who have been exposed to the ACT. You know, there are only a handful who have taken it before they've gotten in my class. The majority, I would say probably, I don't know, I would think between 85 and 90% of the kids haven't even taken the ACT until they take it under the state mandated requirement as a junior. And I think the more we expose them to taking it even at an earlier age, the more you expose them to the kinds of questions, the timed environment, that kind of stuff, the more comfortable they become with taking it. And so if we're gonna continue requiring it, I think we should help, you know, kind of, a lot of the kids don't understand they get waivers, you know, for taking the test, if they get free or reduced lunch and that kind of stuff. And I think that's the kind of the information we need to kind of throw out there to them to let them know, because those scholarship opportunities are out there. So and those are the students who are gonna need them the most. So let's, you know, let's push it for everybody, you know, not just for the, because most of the ones who take it before they come into the 11th grade are the ones who are, you know, kind of already financially stable from, you know, most of them are from 2-parent households, that kind of stuff. And so I think we need to expose all groups across the board.
For next school year, because we're going to block scheduling, so we're, you know, eliminating some potential, since right now we're on 8 periods a day. Next year we'll be in 5 blocks. How, like cross-curricular wise, how could we help each other to improve across the board with this? What are y'all's thoughts on that, cross-curricular?
The extended time in class, we'll have to incorporate it during that time since we don't have, I think we're gonna have the enrichment classes that we've been doing that through this year. So Billingers and assignments and, you know, even like at the end of class, doing ACT type questions timed. You know, the timed part is so important because, you know, they need to feel that pressure, you know, keep a mindful eye on skimming the passage and looking at the answer choices and weeding out what they can look at and what they, you know, where they need to focus to find the answer.
I think another thing too is like with cross-curricular that I've seen in other schools, obviously the math, science, you know, English would be like, if the English could focus on grammar, and because right now I'm having, you know, in my English classes, I have to focus on English and reading. And so if the English teachers could focus more on the language part and maybe the history teachers be trained in how to do the reading portions, because under the reading portion, there is only one fiction passage, and the rest of them are nonfiction. And a lot of those nonfictions have to do with humanities, geography, historical, you know,
And they could have scientific texts as well.
right. So yeah, I think across the curriculum, I think maybe the history, not to say that they don't do reading, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying in an ACT setting, if they can focus more on that portion, that might help.
Good. I think that gives us a really good start, and we'll just kind of keep the conversation going and seeing how we can improve as we move forward. So thank you all so much.